Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome. I hope you're able to log in and catch this class. And for the first time, I'm doing it online from home, and I hope it all goes well. I want to offer my pranams to all of you. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivach patita nam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. So this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse 41 and 42. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagvat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki. So we'll read. I'll first read verse 41, 1:7:41, and verse in purport, and then I will read 42 and verse in purport, because the purports are going in totally different directions. So I'll just address them separately. So text 41. Atha, thereafter, Upetya, having reached, Swa, own, Shibiram, camp, Govinda, one who enlivens the senses, Lord Shri Krishna, Priya, dear, Sarathi, the charioteer, Nyavedayat, entrusted to, Tam, him, Priyayai, unto the dear, Shochantaya, lamenting for, Atmajan, own sons, Hatan, murdered. Athopetya swashibiram, Govinda priyasarathi, Nyavedayatam priyayai, Shochantya atmajan hatan. Athopetya swashibiram, Govinda priyasarathi, Nyavedayatam priyayai, Shochantya atmajan hatan. I'll say one more time for you all. Athopetya swashibiram, Govinda priyasarathi, Nyavedayatam priyayai, Shochantya atmajan hatan. So as we know, son of Drona punished, this is Drona Ashwathama has been captured by Arjuna, and he is now being brought in front of Devaki. And Sutta Goswami is telling us this. After reaching his own camp, so translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ho. After reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer Shri Krishna, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife, who is lamenting for her murdered sons. Purport. The transcendental relation of Arjuna with Krishna is of the dearmost friendship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself has claimed Arjuna as his dearmost friend. Every living being is thus related with the Supreme Lord by some sort of affectionate relation, either as servant or as friend or as parent or as an object of conjugal love. Everyone thus can enjoy the company of the Lord in the spiritual realm if he at all desires and sincerely tries for it by the process of bhakti yoga. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, just want to say, it's also in our, I think you can see it on your screen, but if you have any questions or comments, you can please put it in the chat box below, or you can text them at 352-283-3886. That is 283-3886. I would really love to hear from you all, and even just to say that you are there. Thank you very much. So Srila Prabhupada is actually talking about the rasas, the 5 kind of rasas, affectionate relationship, which one can actually realize and sincerely tries for it. Its purpose is at the end of this purport, sincerely tries for it by the process of bhakti yoga. Everyone thus can enjoy the company of the Lord in the spiritual realm in one of these rasas. So I thought for this class, for this part of the class, I would go to Nectar of Devotion and talk about how Rupa Goswami has actually talked about these 5 rasas in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the science of devotional service. So therein the 5 transcendental relationships, which is Shanta, which is actually not mentioned in today's purport, which is neutral, Dasya, which is servant, serving, being always considering that I'm a servant of the Lord, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So the Nectar Devotion actually tells us how the relationship, so in the first instance, Shantaras takes shape, and it is in the form of unflinching faith in Krishna. Once we have that unflinching faith in Krishna and that I am Krishna's servant, that's when we actually come to that mood of Shantaras. And that, once we get the spirit of service, that develops into Dasyaras, and then to Sakhyaras, or undeterred, that's the word used in Nectar of Devotion, undeterred fraternity or friendship, and then to the transcendental platform of parental love, Vatsalya, where actually one feels that they are maintaining the Lord, and then to the transcendental platform of course, all of these relationships culminate in the highest platform, which is Madhurya Ras. And actually in the Madhurya Ras or conjugal love, all of the previous 4 exist simultaneously. So it's described in the Nectar of Devotion that love of God is actually dormant in all of us, and it can be awakened from its dormant position by execution of pure devotional service. Just like, for example, a person is alive and well and walking around and suddenly steps or goes by a snake which bites him, and the person falls unconscious. And just by giving them some antidote to the poison, or as the Nectar of Devotion says, by putting ammonia in front of their nose, they can be revived from their unconscious state. So we have love of Godhead, which is dormant in our consciousness and or dormant within us. And by doing pure devotional service, we can actually revive it. So how do we engage in pure devotional service? By engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord. So at present, our senses are designated because the body is designated. I am American, I am Indian, I am belongs to this country or that society or that family. So when we actually come to the position of no upadhi, we have no designation, and with no selfish motive, and no material impediment, anya bhilashita shunyam jnana karma anavritam. So that transcendental service can actually surpass the influence of Maya, and then we can get to pure love of Godhead. So as long as we have material desires, we cannot taste loving service, transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. So going deeper into what Nectar of Devotion is talking about, the 3 stages of devotional service. So the beginning stage is the cultivation, which we are very familiar with, the 9 different methods: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevaya, Dasyam, Atma Nivedanam. So all of these processes, they're employed by the neophyte in the first stage, which is cultivation stage. And as we continue to do our sadhana and we become fixed in devotional service, and we have realization of that service. So our taste increases, we become attached to the service, which is asakti, feel ecstasy. And then you come to the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. And then the supreme stage is, of course, love of Godhead, when you attain love of Godhead. And a very nice analogy is given in the Nectar of Devotion about a sugarcane analogy, in which we understand, when like actually on the farm we had sugarcane. The Vinaksa Prabhu was growing them and actually making molasses out of it, or sugarcane syrup. So it's a very thin liquid, and then as you boil it by evaporation, it becomes thicker and thicker and finally turns into molasses. And then it will turn into granules of sugar, then rock candy, and so on. So just like the sugarcane progresses from one stage to another, so transcendental love for the Lord develops by stages. So slowly and slowly, it goes to affection, emotion, ecstasy, and extreme and intense attachment. And they're actually known by raga, anuraga, bhava, and then mahabhava. So when actually one becomes situated on this transcendental platform, this stage is technically called sthai bhava, which means you have become steady. And you're so steady that you will not fall down. Unless we are situated in this sthai bhava, there is a risk that we might fall down. So, and within this stage also, there are many developments within these stages. But anyway, when the steadfast position or sthai bhava has got the four ingredients which are described as vibhava, anubhava, sattvika, and vyabhichari, then there is that's when an exchange of rasa or transcendental mellows occurs. So, and those at that point, at the sthai bhava stage, is when actually one can experience those mellows, one of the five mellows which we mentioned before, in which there is a loving reciprocation between the bhakta and the Supreme Lord, which is bhakti ras. So there is exchanging of loving sentiments between the devotee and Krishna. So now coming to the initial stage, which is Shantarati or Shantabhav, one attains this stage, but they do not actually engage in transcendental loving service because this is the neutral stage. And some of the examples are the 9 yogendras, Kavi, Havi, Antariksh, Prabhuda, Pipalayana, Dravida, Chamasa, Karbhajan. So those are devotees. The 9 yogendras are in Shanta stage, and also the 4 Kumaras, who we know very well, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanat Kumar, and Sanatan, also were in the neutral or in the Shanta stage. But we have to remember that Shanta stage or Shantaras is a very elevated position, because when you can fix your mind on Krishna without deviation, only then we can attain Shantaras. And what are the 2 qualities of Shantaras? Unflinching faith in Krishna and cessation of material desires. Means we have no more material desires, and we have unflinching faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we also have to remember that this specific characteristic, that we have unflinching faith in Krishna and we have no desires which are material, those are common to all the other rasas. Just like, sound is present in the sky, but it's also in the other elements like air, fire, water, and earth. So now we go to Dasya Rati or Dasya Bhav, in which a devotee or a person will appreciate that I'm everlastingly subordinate to the Supreme Lord. So they understand that I am always subordinate to the Lord. And there's a natural affection which develops within the devotee, and it's just like a child who grows up, and then in the children, when they are young or when they are teenagers, they don't really appreciate their parents, but as they become older, they actually appreciate the benedictions or whatever different things their parents have done for them. So that is Dasya Bhav, that they understand, that one understands that I'm dependent on the causeless mercy. And the living entity wants to serve the Supreme Lord instead of serving Maya. And all of the servants of Krishna in Gokul, they are in this stage. And their names are mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, Raktak, Chitrak, Patrak. And also in Dwarka, there is the Ruka. And of course, we have the great example of Hanuman, who is in the Dasya Bhav. And actually, Brihad Bhagavatamrita says that Narada Muni is also in Dasya Bhav. And then we have Sakhya Bhav, which is actually mentioned in today's purport by Srila Prabhupada, that, or in the verse also, this dear friend and charioteer. And this is the third stage. In this stage, one associates with this Lord on an equal level with love. There is love and respect as well, but there is also joking, and there is relaxed exchanges such as laughing, and which we know the cowherd boys like Sridham and Sudam in Vrindavan, they all have Sakhya Bhav with Krishna. And then we have Arjuna and Bhima in Dwarka. So in Sakhya Bhav, usually there is equal exchanges. The devotee thinks that I'm an equal. They don't think of Krishna in awe and veneration. But we know when we see in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 11, when Arjuna sees the universal form of the Lord, he's so afraid. And then he prays and he says, please pardon me. I was dealing with you as an intimate friend. And then he says, Sakheti matma prashabham yaduktam, He Krishna, He Yadava, He Sakheti, Ajanata Mahinamam Tavedam, Maya Pramadat Pranayena Vapi. I have in the past addressed you as, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, without knowing your glories, please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times by relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together. Please excuse me for all my offenses. So at this time there is awe and veneration. Although later on in the Vatsalya and in the Madhurya there is no awe and veneration. But in the Sakhya there could be veneration, awe and veneration, as we see in case of Arjuna. And the purport Srila Prabhupada says of this verse, Bhagavad Gita 11:41, that Krishna is so kind and merciful that in spite of such opulence which he has, he played with Arjuna as a friend. Such is the transcendental loving reciprocation between the devotee and the Lord. And he says the relationship between the living entity and Krishna is fixed eternally. It cannot be forgotten, as we can see from the behavior of Arjuna. Although Arjuna has seen the opulence in the universal form, he cannot forget his friendly relationship with Krishna. So next stage, the fourth stage is called Vatsalya Rati. And so the Sakhya Bhav develops into parental affection. So instead of worshipping the Lord, the living entity becomes an object of worship for him. As we know that stories in Krishna book, that Krishna actually carries Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head. And he puts himself under the control of his devotee, like Mother Yashoda. She's actually running after him with a stick. And Krishna has agreed to be bound up by her, to be chastised by her. So that is Vatsalya Rati. And of course, the Madhurya Rati, the fifth stage, in which there is transcendental exchange of conjugal love between the lover and the beloved. And the gopis, or the damsels of Vrindavan, also the queens of Dwarka, and the goddesses of fortune in Vaikuntha, they are all considered to be in the Madhurya Bhav. And also sometimes we know, like in Bhishma Dev, he is actually he is a pure devotee, but some of the secondary rasas come up, like in the case of Bhishma Dev, chivalry appears. So those appear and disappear to enrich the flavor of the primary rasas. So I wanted to go a little bit into the Dasya Bhav of Hanuman, because currently I'm reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita. We read 3 times a week. Actually, I do 4 times a week. We're reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And we were on the section of chapter 4 of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Bhakta, the devotee. And here Prahlad Maharaj actually has appealed to Narada Muni that Hanuman is the most excellent recipient of Lord Krishna's mercy, or Lord Ramachandra's mercy. So he's imploring him, please go to Kim Purusha Varsha, where Hanuman is eternally praying and worshipping Lord Ram. So I want to read a little bit from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita for us to appreciate that in the mood of a Dasya, or in the mood of Dasya Bhav, how Hanuman is experiencing love of God. We usually don't really see, or at least in my case, I didn't really imagine that but we say, we think it's a progression, but actually in each of these stages, the devotee is actually experiencing love of Godhead. So this is chapter 4, text 51 purport. So Srila Sanatana Goswami, so as we know, Srila Sanatana Goswami has written Brihad Bhagavatamrita, as well as he has given a commentary on it. So this commentary which we see in our book, which was written by Gopi Parandhan Prabhu, has got commentary of Sanatana Goswami. So in this text 51 commentary, Srila Sanatana Goswami says that dasyam should be understood to indicate the perpetual relationship of loving service, an exalted variety of transcendental rasa. Dasya is complete service. It involves all the senses, even on the physical level. Just as all the senses of the physical body are purified by a bath, they are all naturally engaged by a devotee's absorption in dasya rasa. And going to text 55. Text 55. So now Narada Muni has come to Kim Purusha Varsha. Narada saw Hanuman absorbed in worshipping Lord Ramachandra's lotus feet with varied items from the forest, as if serving the Lord personally as before. And next verse, listening to the nectarian Ramayan recited by Gandharvas and other celestial singers, Hanuman was in ecstasy. His limbs trembled, tears poured from his eyes, and the hair on his body stood on end. So he is worshipping the Lord in Dasya Bhav, and he's experiencing pure symptoms of pure love. So in the purport, in the commentary, it says, these bodily symptoms of ecstasy are natural effects of maturely hearing the Lord's glories in the perfect consciousness of prema. The Gandharvas living on Kim Purusha Loka regularly sang from Ramayan the glories of Lord Ramachandra, which Hanuman and his Rasika associates experienced as Rasayan, a storehouse full of the blissful tastes of the 9 kinds of loving relationships with the Supreme Lord. Or taking another sense of Rasayan, these recitations were like a sweet tasting medicine, most effective for curing the disease of material existence and strengthening the natural life function of prema bhakti. Then in text 64, text 64, furthermore, Narada said, in the comment, so Narada says, you are the greatest recipients of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And in the commentary, we hear, prema bhakti, Hanuman always swims in an ocean of nectar of prema bhakti ras. And just, this is something which I had not heard of at all, that Narada Muni is describing how Hanuman is actually serving Lord Ramachandra in so many different ways. He says, you are the Lord's servant, his friend, his carrier, his seat, his flag, his umbrella, his canopy, his fan. You are his bard, his advisor, his doctor, his general, his best helper, the expander of his infinite glories. That is so sweet. So I just in the commentary, so that we have a little insight as to what all these things mean. When Hanuman served as the Lord's vehicle, which means he was carrying Lord Ram on his back or on his shoulders, his mighty tail waved behind like a flag. The same tail also served as a royal umbrella, a sunscreen canopy, and a fan. In the role of the Lord's bard, actually we read earlier in this chapter that Hanuman actually studied how to be a poet. And so that's why he would actually sing to Lord Ram. He sang the Lord's glories for his pleasure as a bard. Sometimes Hanuman carried out medical services also, treating the Lord's battlefield wounds. Of course, we know that Hanuman went and picked up the whole hill because he wanted to get some herbs for Lakshman when Lakshman was unconscious in the battle with Kamsa. He got the Sanjeevani booty. Thus, Hanuman was the most adept of of all Lord Ram's monkey assistants. So that's all I have on this verse, which is verse 41. And now we'll go to verse 42. So we are at 8:30. So actually, the reason I went this because the text 42 you will see is totally different purport which Srila Prabhupada has gone to. So I'm going to read it separately now. Tatha trimpashuvan pashabaddam avan mukham karma jugupsitena nirikshya Krishna prakritam guru sutam vama swabhava kripaya nanamacha. Srila Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashvathama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well-behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahmana. Purport. Ashvathama was condemned by the Lord himself and he was treated by Arjuna just like a culprit, not like the son of a Brahmana or teacher. But when he was brought before Srimati Draupadi, she, although begrieved for the murder of her sons, and although the murderer was present before her, could not withdraw the due respect generally offered to a Brahmana or to the son of a Brahmana. This is due to her mild nature as a woman. Women as a class are no better than boys, and therefore they have no discriminatory power like that of a man. Ashvathama proved himself to be an unworthy son of Dronacharya or of a Brahmana, and for this reason he was condemned by the greatest authority, Lord Sri Krishna. And yet a mild woman could not withdraw her natural courtesy for a Brahmana. Even to date, in a Hindu family, a woman shows proper respect to the Brahmana caste, however fallen and heinous a Brahma Bandhu may be. But the men have begun to protest against Brahma Bandhus who are born in families of good Brahmanas, but by action are less than Shudras. The specific word used in this shloka, Vama Swabhava, mild and gentle by nature. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. Ashvathama may be respected by a good-natured woman, but that does not mean that he is as good as a genuine Brahmana. So as you can see, this purport could be considered a little bit controversial. So I actually went on the Vedabase and actually found that Srila Prabhupada has given a class on this verse. So I'm going to take the stance which Srila Prabhupada has taken when he was giving the lecture on this verse. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, woman's nature is very mild and man's nature is very strong. That's the difference. So according to Vedic civilization, women must be protected because they are very simple and then Srila Prabhupada says they can be led to goodness very easily. But as we know in chapter 1 of the Gita, Arjuna says they can be polluted very easily and he's telling Krishna there will be Varna Sankara, there will be unwanted progeny which will by contamination of the women. And as we see in today's world, this is happening more and more. So just like we can mold the character of a child from the beginning and then he can become a great man. So Srila Prabhupada is saying in this, when he gave this class, he was saying, so we can see it in this way. We train women from the very beginning, how to become chaste and faithful to their husband, how they can become very good mothers. They can become very good. They will become very good asset in the family. And actually I was listening to another class, I think it was by Keshav Bharati Maharaj, and he was saying that if you go to our Indian village or in many parts of India, even today, that even though the women will be very shy and not say much, they're actually the ones who are controlling everything in the household. So by shyness, one can actually get things done much better than asserting ourselves and saying, this is what I want to do. And if you don't do it, you're a bad person, stuff like that. So Prabhupada is going on to say that, we need to train up boys and girls so that in the future they may become happy. And how ultimately they become connected to Krishna, because that's the ultimate goal. Athato Brahma Jigyasa, they have to ask questions. Who am I? Who is Krishna? What does he do? So both boys and girls need to be trained up to inquire about the ultimate goal of life. And of course, none of the universities or schools are teaching it, except Bana, of course, here. So when we are entrapped by the modes of material nature, ahankara, vimuratma, the material conception of life, false ego, that is driving us. Just like we were talking in the previous verse, I'm this body, I'm Indian, I'm American, which is false ahankar. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us this process of Sankirtan Yagya, and how to become free from this false ego or false ahankar. Naham vipro na yatirva. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we know the quote, very famous verse. I'm not a brahmana, I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a grahastha, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm not this, I'm not that. So what am I? Gopi bhartu pada kamalayor das das anudas. So that's where we will go. When we get rid of a false ego, we'll come to that platform of rasa, of understanding that I am the servant of Gopi Bhartu, the maintainer of the gopis, who is none other than Shyam Sundar. So, and then we can develop that rasa. We don't want to become gopis, we want to become the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis. Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalayor, Dasa Dasa Anudas. So just like Uddhava, Uddhava wanted to become a blade of grass in Vrindavan because the gopis will trample over it. That is the highest perfection. And the more we become servant of Vaishnavas, that's our perfection and that's our qualification. Because if we want to be recognized by Krishna, if we want to become inhabitants of Vrindavan, if we want to get into that rasa, which is addressed in the previous verse, we want to come to that stage of experiencing rasa, we have to take the lesson which is given by Mahaprabhu, endeavor to become the servant of the gopis. That is perfection. And Jivera Sarupa Hoy Nityera Krishna Das. So unless you come to this point that I am eternal servant of Krishna, we will take many, many births. Mahujunam Janmanam Nante. After many, many births of endeavor, we might come to this position. And then you might come to the understanding that I'm a servant of Krishna, a servant of devotees of Krishna. So just to address the controversial point a little bit, we have to understand about difference between men and women in context, and we don't want to stereotype men and women, and we don't want to succumb to this tendency of stereotyping each other. As Srila Prabhupada was saying, we have to come to a mature understanding that Naham Vipra, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman. I'm just a devotee of of Krishna. So I just heard this in relation to somebody, other devotee was giving this class on these verses. So you have heard of this books, book is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So they were saying that a comedian actually says, men are from earth, women are from earth, deal with it. So, and another example they were giving was like, in a baseball example, that in a baseball, there is male players are always doing the dunking. They just jump up and they're immediately able to put the ball, basketball, dunking of basketball. They're able to put the basketball right inside the basket. They jump so high and they put it in. And in the history of NBA, no woman has ever done it. And then some time ago, I'm not sure if it was a year or so, some time ago, a woman NBA player actually did a dunking, and it was cause of celebration. So we need to understand there are differences. And gentle nature, which is being mentioned in this verse, Draupadi, Nana Vama Swabhava, very gentle, naturally good and well behaved and gentle. So in the context of this verse, we can see that entity of that request of Draupadi actually impelled Krishna to change his mind. Even though Krishna had condemned Ashwathama, Krishna actually changed his mind because of the gentle request of Devaki. And also, we know that he became the cloth of Devaki when she was in the assembly of the Kurus, and Dushasan was trying to disrobe her. Her devotion and her surrender actually made Krishna to come and actually become her cloth. And also we see in the case of Arjuna, when Arjuna is showing his compassionate nature in Bhagavad Gita, when he says, I'm not going to fight, Govinda, I shall not fight. The softness of his heart is being displayed, and actually the specific term is Hirdaya Dorbalya, weakness of heart. But that softness made him eligible to hear the instructions of Bhagavad Gita directly from Krishna. So let's try to reconcile these apparent differences, because they're based on the ignorance of the self, of the goal of life. That's all I have to say. So if you have any questions, you can please put them in the chat box, corrections, comments. I'm just going to read the verses again. After reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer Sri Krishna, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife, who was lamenting for her murdered sons. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwathama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahmana. So I'll just see if anybody has commented. Okay, Mother Dushala has given us a question. How can we become free from material desires? How can we become free from material desires when we have the same mind that we have had for countless lifetimes that brings unwanted thoughts still? So how do we become free from material desires? Actually, I would say when we are, we have to just dovetail those desires. The desires will come just like rivers come in the ocean, right? Rivers are always coming in. And we dovetail those, first of all, we've dovetailed those desires in Krishna's service. And because we cannot say, I don't, I won't. But if we replace them with desires to serve Krishna, then those desires actually will go from being material to spiritual. For example, of course, we have had the same mind, as Mother Dushala says, we have the same mind which we have had for countless lifetimes, but it's covered, and we can peel off those coverings one by one. We're peeling off those coverings by engaging in devotional service, sadhana bhakti, 9 processes of devotional service. And then we will dovetail those desires. So I want to eat something very fancy. I want to eat something very nice. Well, we can eat, of course, what Krishna says we should eat, but we will offer it to Krishna and we'll eat that. And actually, Srila Prabhupada would say when the devotees, they were first coming to 26 Second Avenue, he would feed them till like they were filled to the brim and then more. And later on, he was like, okay, eat less. So the same prasadam is there, but so that we can become, we want to fill up ourselves so much with our sadhana, with pastimes of Krishna, with service, that all of those actions which we usually would do would now become Krishnaized, which become transcendentalized. And then slowly, those layers and layers of material desires will diminish. And as my Guru Maharaj says, Rupa Swami, many years ago, he told me once, This is when I first started coming to Krishna consciousness. He's talking about the balance, the scale. So more Krishna means less Maya. More Krishna. So this is the balance is, we have to just make sure that the pan Krishna pan is going up and material desires are going down. So that balancing act has to also be there. We want to continue to put more in that side, so that on Krishna's side, so that our material or attraction to Maya becomes lesser and lesser. Thank you very much, Mother Dushala, for asking that very nice question. I hope I was able to answer. And I'm going to go back again on the chat and see if there are any other questions. And since there are none, I understand that everything was very clear, and you can please still chastise me if you'd like. And I hope you were able to hear everything properly. And I want to thank you for your kind attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.